Hey guys, it's going to be another video for our how to do stuff in Japan playlist. In many cultures, part of being polite may well sometimes include a little bit of acting. So depending on where you come from, what cultures you come from, some of you might recognize some of them. For example, if you go to somebody's house for dinner and they serve you something that either you don't like or you don't like very much, or you only like a little bit or something. In most cultures we will tend to tell people that it was really tasty and be as convincing as possible, won't we? So that they feel happy that we've enjoyed the meal. You know, oh, it was wonderful, thank you very much. And maybe that involves a little bit of acting sometimes. Other examples might be, for example, if somebody's wearing some new clothes and says to you, "Does my bum look fat in this?" we might have to do a bit of acting and say, "No, not at all, it looks wonderful," or something like that. So it sort of can be part of being polite, can't it, sometimes, that we have to do a little bit of acting. In Japan, it's taken to a whole new level. And the reason that I'm making this video is two aspects. One aspect is the experiencing of it, or the seeing of it, and the other one is being in a situation where you might have to do some of it. So we'll just run through a few examples just to give you a little bit of an idea. Just a few observations, ones I've seen. One was a foreigner came here and walked into somebody's house and didn't take his shoes off, and he got a few meters into the house before I stopped him. I was like, "Oh, stop, shoes," and he's turned around and gone back to the Genkan and then taken his shoes off and walked in. And the lady of the house did the most convincing performance. She stood there and said to him, no, it's no problem at all. And she actually said, "We do it all the time ourselves." And did a really convincing performance to totally convince him that it was no big deal and that they do it themselves all the time and not to worry about it. And it was really convincing. It was a really good job. And then, of course, as soon as he was gone, she had the bucket and the cloths out, and she was on her hands and knees cleaning the whole area where he walked through. So even the parts that he hadn't actually put a foot on, but just the whole area that he passed through with his shoes on, and cleaned the whole lot on her hands and knees. So we get this all the time. You see it, and particularly when you know the person who's doing the acting, and sometimes you have an inside information, so you know that, you know, and we're talking about just Japanese people. So, you know, you get a Japanese person and they're in some situation with another Japanese person and they're totally acting. They're telling the person that it's okay, or they're telling the person that it's wonderful, or whatever they're telling them. And you know it's not true, you know it's not what they're really thinking, but they're really convincing. And that's the point of this video, is these guys take it to an amazing, really accomplished, skilled level, to the point where you don't really know. And this isn't like, oh, well, you know, someone who's only here for a week won't really know, but, you know, those of us who lived here for a long time, we know. It's not the case. Sometimes you do, sometimes you know, sometimes it is obvious. It's sort of like sometimes when it doesn't really matter, they don't try so hard, but often you really don't know. And you ask another Japanese person that you're close to, look, what do you think the truth was there? And they won't really know, because they're so convincing. So it happens a lot, you know. Someone will tell you that something's okay, you know, and you find out later on it isn't. Someone will tell you that, you know, they really like something, later you find out that they don't. There's all sorts of, it happens all the time, and it's probably connected to the fact that Japanese society is so polite that they just have to do more of it, you know. And it's all about maintaining the harmony as well, so people have to do a lot of it, and so it can be really confusing, because you really don't know. Often you don't know what the truth is. Someone tells you something and you just don't know, you know. And what triggered this video is we get emails all the time from people, a variety of different things, but one over the last 6 or 7 years, one that we get regularly through YouTube messages is people telling these sad stories about, you know, I came to Japan and I met this Japanese girl and we were really getting on well and we were really making a connection, and then since I went back to my country, you know, she stopped emailing me. What do you think's going on? Usually it's a guy that's come here and the girl has totally convinced him that, you know, it's not that she's trying to convince him that there's any sort of romance happening. All it is that she's just trying to be really nice. She's trying to be really polite and kind and thoughtful and that sort of thing. We have had a couple from girls with the same situation. You know, this guy was really nice and I felt we really had a connection, but since I've been back, you know, I only had 1 or 2 emails and then they stopped. And that we get those all the time. The other one we get is that on these how-to videos we sometimes make observations and suggestions, you know, for those people who are interested, and say, you know, for example, the tattoo one, you know, we made a video talking about tattoos and suggesting that, you know, if you come to Japan, you're best off hiding the tattoos because they can cause you problems. They can stop you getting a job, and they can stop you getting an apartment, and they can just stop people hanging out with you. It's quite possible too. Not always the case, but it can be the case. And we explained it about the tattoos, and then occasionally we get a comment on there, that's not true. I was in Japan and everybody who saw my tattoos told me that I was cool. No doubt. No doubt everybody that saw the tattoos said that they were cool. No doubt at all. But how many of them were true? How many were telling the truth, and how many were just saying that to make the person feel more comfortable? So that guy was strutting around here with his tattoos hanging out apparently, hadn't bothered to cover them up, and was, you know, telling, no, your video's all wrong, it's not true, you know, everyone that saw my tattoos told me they were cool, nobody said anything wrong. Well, yeah, of course, and that's the thing, you know, that's what happens here. And this video is in conjunction with all the other how-to videos, because this is the catch. And this is why we make the how-to videos, is because the average Japanese person isn't going to tell you. It doesn't matter how close you think you are to them. You know, when you do the wrong thing here, or when you're not doing the right thing, or whatever's going on, they're going to tell you whatever they want to, whatever you need to be told to make you feel better. So if you're doing the wrong thing, they will tell you that it's no problem at all. You know, if you're not doing what you should be, they'll tell you it's no problem at all, usually, and they will be really, really convincing about it. Usually, not always. The last how-to video talked about people telling us off here, and it does happen too, but this is more common. You know, there might be one person who's prepared to tell you, but there'll be 100 that convincingly tell you that it's all okay. And then what tends to happen is, often people tend to want to hear the thing that makes them most comfortable, right? And so that even if one person does tell them they're doing the wrong thing, if another 10 people tell them that, oh no, it's all fine, don't worry about it, and that's what'll happen. If you get the old guy to tell you off and say, don't do that, that's no good, then that, and if you react to that and, oh geez, and you obviously feel uncomfortable about that, there'll be 10 people that tell you, oh, don't worry about it, it's okay, don't worry, it's fine. And they'll tell you really convincingly, really act it out. They'll really act it out and have you totally convinced, you know, and it happens all the time. It happens all the time. You know, another one we often get, sort of mentioned it just earlier, but we often get people that tell us about how, you know, Japanese girls love Americans, Japanese girls love foreigners, you know, and all that sort of thing. And we've done interviews on this topic, and we found out what the truth was about all those things. But we often, it's easy to believe what you want to believe, isn't it? So if someone's acting out some scene for you and telling you that it's all okay, you really want to believe that what you've been doing has been okay, so you tend to want to believe it. So that's why you see on the internet these stories about guys telling me about how, you know, all the girls in Japan loved them when they were here, and, you know, everything they did was wonderful, and their tattoos were cool, and everything that they did was great. No doubt that's what they were told, and it's so convincing. It's so convincing, you know. Another example of this is, some more examples would be the food. If you're eating food with people, you'll find that you know, if you have dinner with 10 people around a table, all 10 of them will really go on about how tasty everything is. And it probably is. There's a good chance it is, but they'll really exaggerate. And this is the other thing. It's quite possible that what the people are saying is true, but it's often exaggerated. you know, and they'll really exaggerate how good the food actually is. And oh, sugoi oishi desu ne, you know, or if someone does something, you know, you're at somebody's house and they've put together a do-it-yourself bookshelf from the hardware store. They've bought a do-it-yourself bookcase from the hardware store and put it together themselves with an Allen key, and oh, sugoi, and everybody talks about how excellent it is and what a great job they did and how excellent it is, and your English and your Japanese, break out a little bit of Japanese. Konnichiwa, oh, jozu desu ne, oh, sugoi jozu desu ne, and I'll tell you how wonderful your Japanese is and how skilled you are at speaking Japanese. And again, people want to believe that, right? So you hear that all the time. Oh, you know, I learned Japanese in a month and everybody told me how great my Japanese was. Yeah, well, no doubt they did. No doubt they told you that, you know. So again, your Japanese might be really good. It might be true, but there's a good chance it won't be. So with the sorry, but there's a chance it won't be. With the exaggeration, that's the next step. Is the problem that we have is some of us come from backgrounds and cultures where we tend to downplay our reactions to things, and having a sort of a mellow reactions to things is sort of considered to be more cool and more normal. And you know, all sorts of cultures have backgrounds like that, don't they? You know, like those of us who've come from British sort of backgrounds tend to be like that. You know, something really spectacularly dramatic happens, you know, and oh, didn't see that coming. You know, it tends to be, the reactions tend to be more downplayed and more deadpan and you know, a bit more sort of take it in our stride. So you know, someone shows us a book cabinet that they put together themselves, and oh, it's good, you did a pretty good job of that, would be our reaction, right? But if you're standing there with 4 other Japanese people and they're all going, oh, sugoi, and they're all looking at it really closely, and oh, subarashi, sugoi, and it's wonderful, it's excellent, you did a great job, you know. And what tends to happen is that you tend to do it a bit yourself when you've been here a while. When you're surrounded by Japanese people all the time, you do tend to do it a bit yourself, because if you don't do it a bit yourself, it's going to come across a bit rude. That everybody's making a big fuss about what a great job this guy did of the bookcase, and you're just standing there going, yeah, it's not too bad. You know, because compared to their reactions, your reaction's going to seem a bit abrupt, a bit rude, a bit, you know, not polite enough. And this is what can happen. And same as with the food, everybody's going about, oh, sugoi desu ne, surashi, you know, fantastic, excellent food, isn't it tasty? And you know, if you go, oh, it's pretty good, you know, or the Japanese equivalent of, oh, you just there. But you sort of have to, you know, if you do that, it can come across as a bit rude. So the point of this video is the 2 aspects. Is the first one is you have to just it's best to just take with a grain of salt some of the reactions that we get here. Sometimes time will tell. Sometimes if you wait, you will find out. So that's usually the advice. If people send these messages about, you know, I thought this person really liked me, this Japanese person really liked me, but they're not answering my emails, usually the advice is time will tell. Just give it time, because that's often when you get to find out the truth. That if someone tells you something's okay, well, you'll find out later whether or not it really was. If you feel like somebody's interested in you, you'll find out later whether or not they really are or not. Time will tell. So we just have to sort of take what we see and hear and experience as a little bit with a grain of salt, and a little bit sort of, not skeptically, that wouldn't be very good, would it? But sort of just, you know, believe it when you see it, sort of thing, when it's really has sort of proven itself out. Because otherwise, you know, one classic example is people doing the wrong thing here, and then, you know, a whole heap of people telling them really convincingly that it was okay, when really it wasn't. And can see that can really lead you astray then, because then you can go and do the same thing again. You know, somebody's told you something's okay when it really isn't, so you think, oh, it's okay. They said, and I see this all the time with the comments on the how-to videos. Frequently, someone who was in Japan for a week or a month or a year or something saying that I did that all the time in Japan and nobody ever said it was a problem. Everybody said it was okay, and it's like, well, yeah, no doubt, you know. And that's sort of tragic when you see that, because it's like, yeah, well, you know, that's right. And it's so convincing. That's why we don't argue with that. If someone says, you know, everybody said my tattoos were cool, we just let that go, because you're not going to convince anyone any differently. Again, they don't want to be convinced anything different. Everyone's told them it's okay, they want to believe that. But the sad thing is that who knows what effect that had, walking around with the tattoos hanging out. You know, someone might have been going to invite them to something and then thought, oh no, I better not, because if he flashes his tattoos around, they're going to think that I'm hanging out with criminals. Or, you know, again, please don't get upset about that one, but it's just the way it is, unfortunately. There's still a percentage of people here that consider tattoos to be bad. So, you know, this is where the sort of thing where it can lead you astray. So just be aware of the fact that, and so convincing, you know, such skilled actors, really skilled. Some of these guys, really skilled actors, you know. You make a joke and everybody falls about the place, laughing their heads off. And again, the exaggeration thing, sometimes the exaggeration's so exaggerated that it's obviously exaggerated. The example is guys falling about on the ground laughing when you tell a joke, or when you say something to try and be funny. And it's sort of come from TV. There's guys on TV that do that, you know, they really exaggerate their reaction. You know, so you make a joke and they fall around on the ground holding their sides laughing. Or surprise is another one. You say something that's a little bit surprising, you know, and they really overact the surprise about the thing that's really not that surprising, really, but really play it up, you know, really play it up, and it can actually start to be annoying sometimes. It really can, where particularly the surprise one, being a foreigner, you know, you try to sort of go with the flow and sort of blend in a little bit as much as we can. But that's being surprised by what we say or do thing can really start to drive you crazy, particularly when you're trying not to. You're trying not to do anything too surprising. You're just trying to just go with the flow and just be part of the group and sort of not create any ripples. And then when you do some little thing, some of you might remember a story about drinking out of a milk container without a straw, and it got this huge reaction, which there would have been some people who were a little bit surprised, but not only that, they have to play up the surprise, you know, exaggerate how surprised they are. So, you know, not only can the acting sometimes be a fake or a false, give you a false impression that they're actually convincing you of something that's not true, something's okay when it's not, or something's what it isn't, but also it can be an exaggerated reaction as well, which can give you a wrong impression, and it can be an exaggerated reaction that can just be annoying. Sometimes it can really be annoying. It's like, oh, really, again, you know, again with that. And particularly guys, I don't know, it just seems, often ladies with their communication styles can be a little bit dramatic, can't they? No, there's a big generalization, but you know what I mean. In a lot of cultures, the way ladies communicate can often be a little bit more animated, whereas in some cultures the way guys communicate might not be as animated. Whereas what you'll find here is quite often the guys are super animated in their reactions, quite often really exaggerated reactions, which can sort of drive you crazy a little bit. So again, the reason I'm making this video is it's just a cultural difference thing. So Japanese people don't notice this, so you can't say anything about it. You can't say to your Japanese friends, was he telling the truth or was he just acting? It's really better not to, because that's sort of drawing attention to all that stuff, and it's better not to do that. It's sort of one of those things where you just have to be quietly aware of it yourself, that, you know, what you're seeing and hearing may or may not be true, not really sure. Always better to go the way of caution. So if someone says to you, or some old guy tells you something's not good, and then a whole bunch of people say, no, it's all right, it is, probably better to assume it's probably not and be a bit more cautious. Watch, and again, we made a video once before, look, listen and learn. That's the most important thing. If you really want to know what is and isn't okay, watch what everybody else is doing. If whatever you just did, nobody else ever does, there's a good chance it probably isn't okay. That's why none of them are doing it. So that's definitely one hint right there, what everybody else is doing. The other one is that, yeah, choosing our reaction when we react to things ourselves, that, you know, sometimes to be polite we might just have to exaggerate um, our own reactions to things as well to be more polite. So it can be difficult, because for some people we feel like we're being insincere when we do this, but it's just a cultural thing. And I mean, there's a lot of cultures where we do this, isn't there, to different degrees. You know, when you're having dinner at someone's house and you may not be enjoying it terribly much, but usually we'll tell them that we're enjoying it, won't we? And we'll tell them it's very tasty and you like it. So it's not really much different from that. It's just sort of a much more extreme version. And those of you who've spent time in Japan or have spent time with Japanese people may well recognize this. You know, you show them something that's sort of a little bit surprising and you get a massive reaction from them, or, you know, often the reactions to things are big exaggerated reactions, you know, to make us feel good, which is what it's all about. And that's the thing to remember with all this too. It's all to make us feel good. You know, in some cultures we value the honesty thing over everything else, you know, at any cost, you know, honest at any cost sort of thing, whereas here it's really about the harmony and people feeling good, and that's why these reactions tend to be what they are. They tend to be to make people feel good, and if they're aimed at you, it's generally to make you feel good, you know. So anyway, just a heads up. So err on the side of caution, and just be aware of the reactions around you and feel good about it. I mean, this is it's just another observation. Some of these topics are really uncomfortable to make videos about, because it can be taken the wrong way. All we're doing is just giving people a heads up so they don't embarrass themselves, because we see this all the time, you know, with people saying, oh no, they said it was okay. Well, no, it really wasn't. They're just telling you that to make you feel better, and that person's then's gone on to embarrass themselves, because the way Japanese people see it is they know they're just being polite. They know that they're just being polite, and it's up to us as adults to be able to recognize it ourselves. And we really embarrass ourselves if we do something wrong, and people tell us here, if people here tell us it's okay, and then we do it again, our behaviour seems childlike. It seems like we're children when we do that, because the way it's seen in Japan is that we have to take responsibility for ourselves, and we have to be on the ball enough. Only very young Japanese kids don't know what's right and wrong here, so that when you come here and you do the wrong thing and everyone goes, no, it's okay, you know, it's okay, and then you do it again the second time, they're like, you know, unbelievable. They've done it twice. And they don't think, yeah, but we told him it was okay. They don't think like that. They just think that it's our responsibility to do the right thing, and that work out what's the right thing to do, and mainly by observation, watching what everybody else is doing, working out from that what the right thing and the wrong thing is. So we can cause ourselves a lot of embarrassment by not being switched on to stuff like that, and that's why we make these videos. So of course, there's always people who say, oh, I'm not going to do that, I don't care about all that. That's fine too. This is just for those people that want the heads up, that it might help them have a better experience here and get more out of their experience here and have less dramas and embarrass themselves less and so on. If people want to do something else or not think about this stuff, then of course that's fine too. These videos really aren't for people that think like that, they're more for the people that want to be a little bit more aware of these sorts of things. So anyway, hopefully at least one person got some benefit from that. More videos coming soon.